Miss Meaghan Thomas, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great. So glad to finally meet you. Just let's shotgun this thing and get right into it. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, where do I begin? I am an original Georgia peach from Johns Creek, Georgia. I grew up and went to high school outside of Atlanta, then went to the University of Alabama and got my undergrad degree in broadcast news and geography. So I double majored in those two things. And then I went to Mississippi State and got my master's degree in broadcast meteorology. My first job while in grad school was actually teaching. I taught, had class and I taught broadcasting. And then I also worked at the television station in Columbus, Mississippi for about 11 months while I was in grad school. And then before you know it, I was off to Birmingham, Alabama to work at the ABC affiliate there and did that for 6 years, 3 years as weekends and 3 years as mornings. And then moved to Nashville for the ABC affiliate. Gosh, July of 2020. So the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, from there, so you also have let's go even further back than that. So you are a supporter of people who may have hearing impairment. So how is that like factor into your life? Is that something you were born with, or is it something that happened at an early age, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I mean, once I got to Nashville, I created a nonprofit and my children's book called The Heart of Hearing. And the reason I did that was because I posted this picture on Instagram and Facebook, and it went viral overnight. And that has never happened to me before in my entire life. And I've been in television almost 10 years. Nothing I do takes off like that unless it's bad. If it's bad, then it goes far. But this was like just a positive post. And I was like, there's a lot of new faces who are following me on Instagram. And, hey, I'm Meaghan. I like to work out. I have a little Pomeranian, and I wear bilateral hearing aids. And it went everywhere. I mean, Good Morning America picked it up. News Nation in Chicago. I mean, Here.com, Signia Hearing Aids. I mean, there were so many people who reached out to me, and there are people still reaching out to me almost over a year ago. And people always ask, well, what inspired it all? Well, my hearing loss is actually just hereditary. It's nerve damage. So my dad is hard of hearing. He's got profound hearing loss in both of his ears. I have profound hearing loss in my left ear, which means I miss about 70% of whatever's said. And then on my right ear, I miss about 30% of whatever's said. That's severe hearing loss. Most people fall in that mild to moderate category. I'm on that lower end. And then my dad's like really low. So it wasn't until I'd say middle school that I kind of picked up on the fact that I wasn't really hearing much. And that was because during sleepovers, when you have your girlfriends and y'all get together and you have sleepovers, and the lights went off and everybody wanted to talk. But I didn't realize how much I relied on reading lips. So I just always went to sleep.
Oh.
And I was always the first one to sleep, and I never really thought anything of it. And then I started really picking up that I'm reading lips more often than the average person, but I never really said anything because at home, my mom talks extremely loud because my parents have been married 45 years in February. They will be married 45 years. They just celebrated 44. So she's always talked really loud. And then my dad has hearing aids, but he also had all these tools at home. So I grew up with headphones to wear when you're watching TV. And I just grew up with everything just elevated. Everything was already loud in my house. So I never really noticed it at home. And my parents didn't pick up on it at home because I just used all those tools and just didn't think anything of it. They didn't think anything of it. And when I got to college is when it got really bad. I would say that being in those giant auditoriums and realizing I can't see the professor's face anymore, and then not being able to read lips. So I was missing so much stuff. I was the girl that was like, what'd they say? Oh, can you say that? What? And looking over on the other people's paper and be like, what's going on? And then fast forward to grad school, I had a couple of best friends who were like, you're so terrible. You should really get them checked. And I was like, no, it's fine. My dad's deaf. And I just was like, we're not, it's for old people, there's a stigma with having hearing loss that you've got to be 60 and older, that it's not the case. I'm well representative of that. And so they always knew to sit on my right side. They knew to tap me on my shoulder to get my attention. And more, I was starting to realize like, oh, I really am starting to figure this out. And my first job in Birmingham, I was getting what we call an IFB made. So they're these little earpieces when we are in television that we wear to listen to the directors and the producers. And well, they have to put a mold in your ear. And this thing is like fills the whole ear up. So you can't hear anything. It stops it up. And my coworker was, I guess, trying to talk to me. So after they pulled the mold out, he looked at me and was like, Meaghan, I've been trying to talk to you for like 10 minutes. He even flinched. I was like, I told you I can't hear really well out of my left ear. And we were getting it done at a like hearing aid place. So the audiologist was like, just come back free of charge. We'll test your ears. They feel like you really need this done. And I was like, okay. So I come in and turn out, you know, I have profound hearing loss in my left ear and severe on my right. And he's like, you really need a pair of hearing aids. But what people don't know are hearing aids are not covered under insurance at all. Your audiologist appointments aren't covered under insurance. That's gonna be $80 to $150 a pop. Hearing aids can go up to $5,000-$6,000 depending on the brand and the fanciness of them. And so I was 23, and I don't know about you, but I didn't have $5,000 to $6,000 just hanging out in my bank account. I was paying off student loans, trying to pay a car. I mean, you know, just like silly things. Like I didn't have that money. And even if I did at 23 years old, I was not going to spend that amount of money on a pair of hearing aids.
No.
I would have bought a pair of shoes, probably bought jewelry, a purse, something, right? And so I told my parents, and my mom and dad were like, they started kicking themselves because I think that they were like, well, shoot, we should have picked up on this a long time ago before it got this bad. And my mom and dad were like, well, we pay for your dad, so we can't really pay for both pairs because that would be $10,000, you know, it's just a lot of money. And so they paid for one of mine. And then the audiologist 3 years later was like, listen, like this one ear is not going to do you any favors because it's nerve damage. The hearing aid actually stimulates the nerves in the backside of your ear. So as long as the nerves are stimulated, it won't get as bad as quick. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If I don't wear them, they will get progressively worse quicker. So the hearing aids actually are helping me to prolong it just a little bit. And so the audiologist, I switched to a new one, and she suggested to go through this vocational rehab program. And I did. I had to prove that I needed, you know, my ears in order to do the weather and do all that stuff. And so I went to the final fitting and they said, hey, we're going to, you know, pay for half of it. I was like, great. I'm ready to max out a credit card because again, here we go. And so they actually came back and they said, actually, we're going to pay for all of it. And I remember just sitting in the chair and just crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I was about to go into debt over something that like I needed in order to live my day-to-day life. And it's not covered at all. It just doesn't make sense. So when this post went viral, I took myself back to that place where I felt just like overwhelmed with joy when they told me they were paying for it. So I created this nonprofit called The Heart of Hearing because I wanted to be able to give that feeling to somebody else, that young professional. And I actually met with a mentor of mine from here Nashville yesterday, and he's been doing nonprofits for 40 years, and he was kind of like helping me kind of fine tune what I want to do. And his here Nashville does like lower income families, you have to meet a certain threshold. Whereas I was like, you know what? I want it to be the young professional, the 20 to the 45, who, yes, you have a great job. Yes, you are employed. Yes, you do make a certain amount of money, and you still can't pay for it because, I mean, there are so many other factors in life that come up. I mean, I was 26 and yeah, I was going to pay for it, but it wasn't the most convenient of times. I had a great job. It's not something that you really want to spend the money on. Right. And so I kind of want to take that burden off of somebody else. And that's truly the reason why I created it. So from the ages of 20 to 45, we'll take care of your audiologist appointments. We'll take care of, obviously, the hearing aid itself. And we're throwing a lot of events this year. Our first one is going to be March 26th. if you come to Nashville.
okay.
It's in Nashville, March 26th at Metabolic. It's a new gym in town, and we've got a bunch of giveaways and different booths will be there. And we only have 50 tickets available because the classes could only be a certain amount of sizes. And we partnered with a great brewery, New Heights Brewery in town, and they're going to throw the after party where you can get drinks and stuff afterwards. And then we've got other events in the pipeline, hopefully going to do a golf tournament, a singer-songwriter round, and just different events that will help, one, bring awareness to the fact that this isn't just a quote unquote elderly thing. This is an everybody thing, and also be able to raise money to, at the end of the year, take those applications and review them all, and then be able to bless somebody next year with a pair of hearing aids. And on top of all that, I wrote this children's book. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Heart of Hearing, and that's me. And all of the animals in the book have hearing aids, and my favorite one is the dog. It's a very elementary school book, so it's meant for, infants through about probably 6th grade, just to kind of encourage them a little bit. And the dog is my favorite because I have a Pomeranian, and my illustrators made it a Pomeranian. It looks just like my dog Daisy. So that's my favorite part. And then at the very end, the last line really says it all, because it says, "And I hear it all because I wear my aids." And I kept it as aids. Someone asked me that the other day, and I was like, because cochlear implants are still considered aids, hearing aids are still considered hearing aids, And so I wanted to be able to kind of group them together, because the amount of stuff that you miss if you don't wear your hearing aids is something that y'all probably have full hearing, don't understand. I've never heard a car blinker. I still don't hear car blinkers, even with my hearing aids in. I don't hear crickets or the birds chirping, the wind blowing, the air conditioning turning on. There are so many things, the microwave beeping, that drives my boyfriend nuts. I just walk away from it. And, it's some of those things that you just you miss so much of, but you don't miss it until you've heard it. And then you're like, oh, wow, I need to start wearing my hearing aids. And I understand that young children, it's not the coolest of things.
No,
but what's wild to me is that kids don't seem to understand that hearing aids are basically just like glasses for your ears. And insurance companies don't seem to understand that hearing aids are basically just glasses for your ears. So you get insurance for your ears and your eyes, but why not, or your eyes in your teeth? Why can't you get it for your ears? It just doesn't make sense to me. So hopefully one day soon, actual hearing aids will be covered in insurance. I know that right now the new legislation is they're trying to make these things over the counter hearing aids, but all those are going to do is they're called amplifiers, and they're not real hearing aids. So my hearing aid, this is made by Signia. I love them. They have specifically made this for my ear. Yeah. In hearing aids, I miss letters and words in the first part of the THs or the SHs or double D, those letters that kind of sound similar. Hearing aids kind of clarify that. With amplifiers, they don't, but progress is progress. So more people start talking about it, then maybe hearing aids will eventually be covered under insurance, which is my ultimate goal.
Well, I mean, whoa, okay, yeah. Well, first off, I did not know that. I did not know that that they weren't covered under insurance. I had no clue, because I've never really dealt with this. My grandfather was hard of hearing, working at a sawmill all of his life and never wearing protection. But he was one of those people that he didn't start wearing them until he absolutely had to, because he thought he didn't need to. But yeah, I mean, going back to talking about children, being a little more self-conscious about wearing those things, because they're not as, you don't see it, they're not as prevalent as someone wearing glasses, so it would be something that's a little more oh, it's not cool to wear these, I don't want to wear them, or they may be, not want someone to know that they have that issue. But I completely agree. I think that's something that, I mean, your hearing is just as important as your eyes or your teeth. I mean, it's something that I would rather go blind, I think, than lose my hearing. I feel like that I'm, more apt to listening to things than I am seeing them. And something that's just crazy to me that you mentioned, not being able to hear birds chirp or crickets, or, those are the little things that are extremely, I mean, I guess you don't know you miss them until you do,
Right. And like there was this one time I'd never heard cicadas and I had a new pair of hearing aids in and I walked outside and I was like, what is that annoying noise? And so I played the can I hear it? Can I hear it not? And because I miss certain frequencies. And I guess that's a certain frequency that I just never have heard before in my whole life. So I put my hearing aids in and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so annoying. I turned them off and or pulled them out and I was like, I was with the person. I was like, are they still doing it? And they were like, yes. And I put them back in and I was like, oh my gosh. That's when I think I realized, oh, these things really do work.
Yeah. Well, I do think it's important too that you're actually, specifically talking about these amplifiers versus the A's, because I think a lot of people need this education too. And something that you're doing, how did the kid book happen? Where did that come from?
Honestly, I wrote it in like a day, and it was when I was talking to, and it was a while ago, and I was talking to the folks at Good Morning America, and the girl who was interviewing me, I was telling her about all these ideas I had. I was like, I want to start a nonprofit. I want to write this book. And she was like, girlfriend, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? I was like, all of this costs money. And so she was like, just do it. And I said, all right. And so I just did it. I found a coworker of mine. She has written a children's book. So I reached out to her publisher, talked to her publisher. I said, what do I do next? She's like, you find an illustrator. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. So I Googled illustrators and I got onto Facebook and I joined like a children's illustration group. And I just put like a message out there. And I got over 100 emails saying, here's my work. I would love to work with you and all this stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, whoa. I interviewed a couple people and I fell in love with Miriam and Sean Balsano. They are out of Portugal, like Lisbon, Portugal. We Zoomed, had an interview. Their colors, their drawings and illustrations were exactly what I was imagining. I wanted it to be like bubbly and fun and bright and colorful, and they nailed it. I mean, I need to like post something on my social media, like this is what it looked like when I drew it, and this is how they came. I wish that I need to show like the before and after. Like these people read my mind and took this to that, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, watching that process unfold. I've had the basically just privilege of working on a few children's novels as they come to fruition. It's something amazing to see someone's idea and then transforming it into the actual layout, and then being from sheer loose leaf paper all the way to a hardback published copy. It's just a magical transition. It really is.
It was one of those things where I came in the mail and I was like, oh my gosh, it's here. Yeah. It was just one of those feelings. And I sold over 200 copies of it already. And I'm hoping to make connections with schools here in town and different states and get them into just every public school's library or private school's library. Just every school should just get a copy, put it in their library. And those kids who have the hearing aids will see it and maybe want to read it. Yeah. And I think and it's not even just for the kids with hearing aids. It's for kids that don't wear hearing aids to understand why those who do wear hearing aids wear them. It's because they can't hear the same things as you do, but if they put them on, I call them my magic ears when I'm talking to deaf and hard of hearing kids, and they, I've got magic ears too, and they need to realize like kids are going to be kids, and and then they're the same as you. Our ears are just a little bit more special.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. You said, so how long now to this point, how long has the nonprofit been in service now?
So the book came out in November. Okay. I started all working on this in April of 2021. The book finally got to my doorstep from idea to printed in November. And then my nonprofit, I started the paperwork back in April then too. And it finally was accepted by the IRS December 2nd. So this is our first.
We're brand new. We're brand new here.
We are stinking new, and it is so exciting.
Well, congratulations. I didn't know how old it was, but hearing all that, I was like, okay, this is pretty young and new, and this is awesome. So, well, let me tell you this. I cook at a lot of nonprofit golf tournaments. I will drive to Nashville and barbecue for you guys. You just give me the info. I promise I'll be there. Okay.
You got it.
That's like a hobby of mine. We do a lot around here. But yeah, like this is exciting. This is something that, like completely like a lot of people have issues, but they, you know, and they may have reasoning or, well, it's just crazy, right? The power of social media, right? Because we see so much hate, so much negativity, and when something good comes out of that, you know, you just making that one post and just, you know, whether you're insecure about it or not, you still just talking about yourself literally gave so many people so much joy, and then it turns into what it has, you know.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, some of the messages I got truly changed my life, because honestly, I am still insecure about it. I miss so much stuff. People say, people start laughing. I'm like, what's the joke? I missed it, you know? And I think that or when I ask you, what'd you say? Like for the fifth time, at that point, you're just like, I heard it. Like, we'll forget about it. And you know, people who really do know, they will, you know, rephrase it for me or say something differently or be like, are you sure you heard that? I'm like, no. But I think that, you know, posting about it kind of made my insecurity kind of fade away. I didn't realize the amount of messages I was going to get, and the positivity that came from it was just unbelievable. I mean, like I said, like we were talking about this earlier, I do a show on Instagram every morning called Biscuits and
I was
Jam.
about to bring that up too. I wanted to talk about that as well. Yeah.
Well, I do it on Biscuits and Jam. And the other day I had this group, this trio on called Vote, and the girl in the group overheard me talking about how I was raising money for my nonprofit and all that stuff. And she like stopped me and she was like, my daughter wears hearing aids and she's like 6 or 7 or something like that. And I said, what? And so she started getting upset and like started like tearing up. And then I talked about my book and she was like, you have no idea what this is going to mean to Daisy, and which is wild because that's my dog's name. And it just was like this full circle moment where you're just like, God is so good. And it's just wild to me that like all of this has played out the way it has. And there's been so much positivity from it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, what about Biscuits and Jam? So what's this about?
So, okay, Biscuits and Jam became this thing I started, gosh, going on 6 years now. I went live. This is how old it is. It started on Periscope, which was Twitter's version.
Yeah.
I was live on Periscope every morning at 7 a.m. and then would play music and talk to the people who were joining in. It was just a way of interacting. And then moved it to Facebook Live when they got rid of Periscope. But my Facebook is more just like weather information. So I was like, I feel weird kind of talking about music and being goofy on this. It just wasn't the right platform. Well, then Instagram came out with the live feature and I was like, well, let's try this. So it's been on Instagram, gosh, for almost 4 years, I would say 4.5, 3 to 4. And then finally, because they would only last for 24 hours. And now finally you can save them, which is great.
Yeah.
But the Instagram live, this is how it started. I picked a theme every single week and people in the studio, whether it was me, my traffic girl, my morning anchors, whoever. So say it was like, you know, TV commercials. Well, you had to like think of a TV commercial that was like a song that, you know, kind of came to your mind. And then you would give a little bit of like brief history about it and talk about it. And then on Fridays, the people who were watching got to pick, and we would surprise, you know, at the end with what they were playing. Well, when I moved up to Nashville here in June of 2020, I was at, gosh, my first week, I was at this party and I met this guy, Nate Smith, and I was like, listen, I have this idea. Would you be interested in like coming on my Instagram morning show? I want to do like a live artist week, like where the artist joins in and, you know, we talk for a little bit and then you play a song. He was like, sure, great. And at this time, he didn't have a record deal, didn't have I mean, now he's got a record deal signed with Sony. Like, I mean, it's kind of wild what's happened the past 2 years for him. But he's always been such a good friend to me. And so he's like one of my first friends I've ever met in Nashville. And so he gets on and we're like talking and I'm like, okay, this is great. Well, that whole week I had booked some people just from friends like Julia Cole and Spencer Crandall and Nate Smith. So those were my first like 4 people because it's like 3 to 4 people because I was like, these are the only people I know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to book people I know before I start reaching out to random people. And so I interviewed them and it went so well. Well, I guess that week people caught on and I had a couple people be like, hey, are you going to continue with this? Can I hop on? And I was like, sure. 205 guests later, I thought I was going to run out of people. That is not the case.
Not in Nashville.
And
I don't think you ever will.
No. and this year I have expanded it a little bit. So I have food trucks come on. I have small restaurants come on. I've got this jacket company coming on, a shoe, like if they redo Air Force Ones, they're coming on. I've had a soap company, an event planner. So I kind of just like expanded it to be more of like a variety entertainment kind of thing. And, you know, I do it all for free.
Yeah, hey, you need to spin this into a podcast at this point. Come on now.
Well, I would love to. I truly would. It's just I do it from 7:30 to 7:56.
Yeah.
Between my Good Morning America cut-ins.
Yeah.
And I just don't know when I would do it.
You just record it and then upload it to the, you can still do a live show and then record it and upload it to a podcast platform. That way it's,
Oh, you're right. 20 minutes. I know. And then you can get the sponsorships and all that stuff. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I thought of it, but it's on my to-do list.
Yeah.
I've got a really long one right now. Starting a nonprofit from scratch, writing a book and still doing my career has been a lot, but it's all been such good things. Like it has been such good things, but I saw my friends, I was like, I need an assistant. I need someone to like just sit down and organize my life for me. Because if you guys saw my Google Calendar, you would be like, what's going on? And I'm sure so many people can relate, but I have different colors, it is scheduled like tonight. I'm talking to a PTO meeting at like 6:30.
Yep. If I have 5 different emails and each one of them are color coded different, my calendar, I'm like, this is for the podcast, this is for the marketing business, this is for event company, this is for catering.
It's like everybody's busy. Everybody's busy. So I'm never like, oh, I'm so busy. I will make time. I will fit it in my life. I'll figure it out. I'll forego sleep because I think everybody is important. I think, people have, given me their time and I would love to do that for other people too.
Well, I think it's something amazing you're doing too, like bringing on these, artists that aren't signed yet, especially, at the ground level, like where you're at, just giving them such great exposure on your platforms. I think that's amazing because they don't get that opportunity a lot unless you walk into the bar they're playing in, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because people are always like so thankful. And I'm like, no, thank you. I did this selfishly because I enjoy music and I started it because I liked music. So when it first came out, like I introduced people to Mitchell Tenpenny. He was like a nobody at one point. And I wouldn't say he was a nobody. He definitely was a writer, but he didn't have songs on country radio. He didn't have all this stuff going on. And now he's huge in my eyes. But I feel like I was probably one of the first fans. And I was playing his music for people all the time. Any chance I could get, I was like playing Mitchell Tenpenny. Or just like some like there's so many that I'm thinking of right now that I've like during those theme days, I was like, oh, let's pick a Mitchell Tenpenny song, or let's pick a Maren Morris, or let's do, Ryan Hurd, or just somebody different. And now that I have live artists on, it's been so cool to watch their careers actually develop. Like between Nate Smith, he got signed with Sony not too long ago, and he is taking off. His music is so good. He's almost like a Luke Combs.
Okay.
Luke Combs. It's really, really good. They kind of resemble each other too, but it's just awesome. And then watching Spencer Crandall, he's now on Lauren Elena's tour. And then a girlfriend, Tiara, who's actually from Alabama, we had this weird mutual friend. It was weird. I was like talking to her. I was like, oh my gosh, this is wild. She just got signed by Big Machine. And there's a couple other girls that I've like talked to who are in the process of getting signed. I can't say them all, but it's just been so cool to watch. And a family member of mine is actually in the music industry. And she was mentioning to me that, what she mentioned, like what you're doing is great. Like they won't ever forget that person who gave them their first shot.
No,
and I was like,
it's something like, it's just like anything, like they're having to put the hard work in at the ground level, and anyone, willing to give them any type of plug, no matter if it's to 500 fans or 50,000, it's a huge thing. It really is.
Yeah, some days I get 500 views, some days it gets 8,500 views.
Yeah.
It just depends on not Facebook, Instagram's algorithm. Sometimes it's a little sketchy, but it's been cool to watch, and I think I've just really enjoyed seeing some of these artists really take off. It's been cool on my end because I feel like, oh, I found them when they were hidden, and now they're these big things.
Yeah. Well, shaking back to the childhood hearing aid, what would be something like you would tell, like, say we're having some parents maybe listen that have a child that may be hearing impaired early on, like what signs to look for, or what would you notice that like did you notice at some point in later life looking back, oh, I missed those things, this is something for awareness you could tell someone to look for, something like that?
That's an amazing question. And I haven't really thought about it, but off the top of my head, I would say to my parents always thought I was just being a brat and ignoring them. When in fact, I really truly wasn't. I just couldn't hear them, especially if I was upstairs and they were downstairs. I heard just mumbling. I had no idea that they were saying my name. I would also look out for if they listened to the television extremely loud.
Yeah, I feel like every kid does that.
Yeah, that's true.
Too, I'm like, turn the TV down.
Well, I will tell you also that hearing loss is now one of the most, I don't know how to say this. It's like the biggest problem, I guess, in this generation, because we've grown up with AirPods in our ears and turned them all the way up. And so more people in the millennial age group have now suffered from hearing loss. And I think that if you've noticed your child kind of being aloof or watching the TV too loud, or they come home and they're like, I really don't understand what's going on in class, I would just ask them, like, how do you think your ears are? Or just take them into an audiologist appointment and you can get the answer just like that.
That's a really good point. I think I was probably just getting into middle school, but I started not being able to see the board, but I was like, hell no, I'm not getting glasses because that's nerdy. I don't want to do that. And I think I fought that. That's one big issue, whether from hearing or seeing or whatever. Like, I think I fought that for like 1.5 to 2 years before, just like you were talking, early on, you kind of fought it too. Like, I fought that because I was worried about what someone thought for me to go get a glasses appointment.
Yep. It's the same thing. I mean, I think, and the other thing that I hate is that young children and even adults, when they see somebody wearing hearing aids, they start yelling really loud. And you're like,
what's up with that?
Yeah, or not. Or they do this thing where they really enunciate, and you're like, yeah, it's not how this works. I read lips like a normal person. So if you're talking like a normal person, I'm going to understand you. But if you're doing this weird thing with your face, it's just not working out for me. And you don't need to yell at me. You don't, these bad boys, they work. So like, if I have them in, great. If I don't have them in, then we have other issues. But yeah.
On the advert side of that, what would you say to someone who is older and may just be someone similar to what position you were in, to where they just kind of refuse to do it until it's almost like time where you have to?
Yeah, someone actually asked me that. Someone my age like DM'd me on Instagram, and they were like, hey, like, I have hearing loss, I think, but like, I don't even know where to go. And I was said, just go to your audiologist. It's worth it. It's a game changer. I mean, I miss so much stuff, and especially in big auditoriums or at dinner on dates and stuff, like, it's loud in those restaurants and you cannot hear. Like, I could not hear the person in front of me, and then I felt uncomfortable. And so the older I've gotten, I'm like, listen, I can't hear, so I'm gonna need you to talk up. But and I think that someone my age, you just gotta bite the bullet. You just gotta do it. And there are programs out there to help. There's so many across the country that are willing to help with the financial burden.
Awesome. Well, look, I've had a great time today. Is there any last plugs you want to do? Anything before we wrap up?
Yeah.
Any words of encouragement to anyone? Anything like that?
I would just encourage everybody to realize that they are beautifully and wonderfully made, and you have whatever you have going on, and it's for a reason. Like, I became a broadcast meteorologist for this platform to present this nonprofit and this book, and to hopefully change generations to come. You can find out more information on theheartofhearing.org. You can read about the nonprofit, who I am, my board members, and why they are intrigued in this nonprofit. You can donate, and you can also buy a copy of the book.
Awesome. Well, I'm not cutting you off yet because I just realized something. I've never done this, but I just realized I want to ask you something else. So I'm about to go completely backwards again. Why
That's
meteorologist? How did you get into this?
Yeah. Okay, that's wild. So I got into weather because my parents sent me to space camp in Huntsville in 7th grade, 5th grade and 7th grade. And I went for a week in the summertime, and it's so nerdy. I think about it now and I'm like, oh my God. But I had the best time of my life. And actually, one of the guys that he's my space camp boyfriend. He and I are still friends to this day. He lives out in Arizona, and my family, when we would go out there, we went out there quite a bit, and we always met up. He always would come to the lazy river or like the resort. And I mean, I made such lifelong friends there, but that's really where I fell in love with the idea of weather, because space, the sun runs everything here on Earth. And it's very interesting how it does ocean currents. And I mean, it's just gravity, like the moon. I mean, everything about it was so cool to me. And then I got into television because I started doing our morning announcements in 8th grade. So I started speaking in front of the camera. Yeah. I mean, hi. So I started doing that in middle school. And then in high school, I hosted my high school's pep rallies, and I was the vice president of the school. And that's really, I got rid of my fear of public speaking. Like, talking in front of your friends is way harder than talking in front of people you don't know, because those high school friends are gonna make fun of you if you say something weird. And they did. I was not perfect, and so I did that. And then I also hosted our television show all throughout high school, and so it was just a seamless transition almost. And when I got to college, I didn't know what to minor in. I was minoring in geography because I still loved weather. And a girl, Courtney, was like, you could double major and you could really get more out of this. And I was like, okay, I don't know why that was more work, but I did. And I had a concentration in severe weather and climatology. And so my undergrad degree is in broadcast news and geography.
Awesome. Yeah, I had to. I was like, hold on, before we wrap this up, I have to ask for these things because it interests me. It always interests me how someone gets from A to B, and it definitely all the things in between, right?
Isn't it crazy how like sometimes your life just like pans out? And I went to like my high school's reunion, and everyone was like, Meaghan is like the one person who's like done exactly what she's wanted to do since she was little. And it's true. I've always just loved to do it. And I was that girl that got in trouble for talking all the time. And here I do it for a living. So
yeah, it's always funny. It's always awesome to see someone, grow, whether it's your peer you grew up with or just someone in your network, watch that whole transition. Well, let's wrap this thing up.
All right.
Instagram, you want to drop your Instagram for anyone who
you can follow me on Instagram. It's MegTomWX, or you can follow the Heart of Hearing page on Instagram. It's just called the Heart of Hearing. And MegTomWX is where I post everything and anything. So you can find me there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right. See you.